What if the life you're living isn't actually yours? What if your dreams, your decisions, even your inner voice were never truly yours? Your parents, your teachers, society, the fear of not being enough. You wake up one day and realize you've been following a script you didn't write. Carl Jung believed that life doesn't truly begin until you find yourself. But finding yourself isn't about adding more. It's about uncovering what's already there, beneath the expectations, the roles, the masks. It's a journey inward, into the parts of you you've rejected, into the shadow. And through that descent, you begin the process Jung called individuation, the path to becoming whole. But before we talk about who you really are, we have to confront what you've become. And why. Part 1. Persona. The mask you mistook for yourself. Carl Jung called it the persona. The social mask we wear to survive, to belong, to be accepted. It's the version of you that smiles when you want to scream. That stays quiet to avoid conflict. That works hard, looks good, stays composed. Even when everything inside feels like it's falling apart. The persona isn't fake. It serves a purpose. We need it to function in the world, to relate to others, to meet expectations. But here's the danger. Wear the mask long enough, and you start to forget it's a mask. You don't just play the role. You start to believe it's who you are. And that's when the real you, the unfiltered, emotional, curious, intuitive, imperfect you, starts to disappear. Think back to childhood. Maybe you were told, don't be too sensitive. Be realistic. Don't cry. Be strong. Make us proud. Each phrase, harmless on the surface, becomes a script, a line in the play, a silent rule about who you're allowed to be and who you're not. So you adapt, you suppress, you shape yourself into what others want, and somewhere along the way, you lose touch with what you want. The persona becomes your protection, your way of being enough. But inside, there's a growing sense of emptiness. Because deep down, you know, the version of you the world loves is not the full story. The longer the mask stays on, the quieter your truth becomes. Carl Jung warned, the persona is that which in reality one is not, but which oneself and others think one is. It's not evil, but it's incomplete. So the question is, if that's the part of you the world sees, what about the part you hide? Because what you show isn't the whole story. The part you hide, that's where the real you begins. That's where we're heading next, into the hidden self, into the shadow. Part 2. Shadow, the darkness that never disappears. If the persona is the mask we show the world, then the shadow is everything we hide behind it. It's made up of all the parts of ourselves we've been told are too much, not enough, unacceptable. Our anger, our envy, our fear, our shame, even our desires, and surprisingly, our hidden strengths. We didn't get rid of these parts. We just pushed them down into the basement of our psyche and locked the door. But here's the problem. What we suppress waits, not quietly, but patiently, learning how to slip into every decision you make. It influences how we think, how we react, who we're drawn to, and who we can't stand. Carl Jung believed that when you feel an intense emotional reaction to someone, especially one you can't fully explain, you're often seeing a piece of yourself in them, a piece that lives in your shadow. This is called projection. For example, you struggle with insecurity. So you hate people who seem too confident. You feel powerless. So you resent those who speak with clarity and conviction. You fear failure. So you roll your eyes at anyone who takes big risks. The traits in others that provoke us often point directly to the traits we've denied in ourselves. The shadow isn't just filled with flaws, it also holds untapped gifts. The courage you buried, the voice you silenced, the fire you were told to extinguish. Imagine your psyche as a house. The persona lives upstairs, tidy, curated, polite. The shadow lives in the basement, chaotic, repressed, misunderstood. But that basement isn't a dungeon. It's a storage room for your wholeness. Everything you need to become who you truly are is down there. And here's the truth. The shadow doesn't disappear. It directs your life, silently, until you face it. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." So the question is, what if everything you've rejected is actually what's missing from your wholeness? Because only when you walk into that darkness can you begin to integrate the light. And that's where the real transformation begins. Part 3. Individuation. Becoming who you already are. Finding yourself isn't about creating a new version of you. It's about uncovering the one that's been buried underneath the masks, the noise, and the fear. Carl Jung called this process individuation. The integration of all parts of the self, light and dark, conscious and unconscious, accepted and rejected. It's not self-improvement. It's self-reclamation. You're not building a better you. You're returning to the whole you were always meant to be. Self-discovery is not construction. It is uncovering. Think of it like this. You spend the first half of your life playing roles. The good child, the overachiever, the caretaker, the rebel. You adapt to survive. You become what the world rewards. Then, something cracks. Maybe it's burnout. Maybe it's heartbreak. Maybe it's a deep inner voice whispering, "This isn't who I am." So you begin to shed the roles. You step into silence. You let the old identity dissolve. It feels like falling apart. But in truth, you're being melted down. So you can be remade, not into someone else, but into someone real. Individuation is messy. It's not a 5-step plan or a weekend retreat. It's a descent into your own depths. It's facing the fears you've avoided, the grief you've silenced, and the rage you've buried. But in that descent, something happens. You find clarity. You find stillness. And eventually, you find yourself. Individuation is not about perfection. It's about wholeness. When you stop rejecting pieces of who you are, you stop needing the world to approve of who you've become. You no longer hide behind the persona, nor fear the shadow, because they now stand beside you. Because now, they're not enemies. They've become one. This is where freedom lives, in the space where you don't need to pretend, perform, or protect anything. You just are. But here's the hard truth. Most people never make it this far. Why? Because silence is terrifying. In silence, we hear the truth. And the truth often demands that we let go of the life we built for safety, so we can begin building one that's rooted in truth. And that's where we're going next, into the noise we use to avoid silence, into the distractions that keep us from ourselves. Because the next step isn't about more doing, it's about stopping long enough to feel what's been waiting. Part 4. Avoiding emotion isn't peace. It's how you lose yourself. We live in a world of constant noise, notifications, scrolling, busy schedules, endless entertainment. But underneath it all is silence. And most people are terrified of it. Because in silence, the truth starts speaking. And the truth often hurts. So what do? We stay busy. We binge. We numb with work, scrolling, and forced positivity. All in the name of moving on or staying strong. But here's the truth. Distraction is not peace. It's avoidance dressed in ambition. We don't escape our emotions by ignoring them. We just disconnect from the part of ourselves that feels them. Over time, that disconnection becomes a numbness. And we start calling it stability. Carl Jung would see this for what it is, a modern defense mechanism, not just psychological, spiritual. Imagine your emotions like a radio frequency. The signal is always there, trying to reach you. But the more noise you layer on top, the harder it becomes to hear. Eventually, you forget there was ever a signal to begin with. And we treat the symptoms without ever meeting the source. And this is how we lose ourselves. Not in trauma, but in our response to it. In the endless effort to not feel what's real. The problem is, those hidden parts don't disappear. They adapt. They evolve. They wear new masks: anxiety, fatigue, overthinking, perfectionism, burnout. And we treat the symptoms without ever meeting the source. We ask, why am I so anxious? Why do I feel empty even when life looks good? Why do I keep repeating the same patterns? Because the parts you've pushed away are now screaming for your attention. And yet, no matter how far we run, those parts of us don't go away. They come back disguised and louder. Distraction numbs, but never heals. So where do we actually begin? It's time to go deeper, because buried underneath all the noise is something ancient and powerful, a pattern older than you, but alive within you. Let's talk about that next. Let's talk about archetypes. Part 5. Archetypes, the hidden patterns shaping your life. Carl Jung believed that buried deep within every human being is a realm beyond personal experience. A psychic layer shared by all of us. He called it the collective unconscious. And within that realm live the archetypes, universal patterns, ancient psychological blueprints that influence your thoughts, emotions, behaviors, and choices. Even if you've never heard their names, you've already met them. The hero, the part of you that wants to grow, overcome, and fulfill a deeper purpose. The shadow, the darker, hidden part that holds fear, shame, rage, and unclaimed power. The anima and animus, your inner feminine and masculine energies. You don't choose archetypes, you awaken them. Think of the hero's journey, found in every culture, every myth. It's the story of facing adversity, slaying dragons, transforming through trial. But in Jungian psychology, the dragon isn't outside, it's inside. Your shadow is the monster. Have you ever wanted to step into something bigger? A new career, a new version of yourself, but felt frozen by fear or suddenly sabotaged it all? That's your inner hero meeting the shadow. Now, Jung also taught that all humans carry both masculine and feminine energies. These appear as anima, the feminine within men, and animus, the masculine within women. But this isn't about gender, it's about balance. The anima represents intuition, creativity, emotional depth, connection to the unconscious. The animus reflects logic, structure, focus, and assertiveness. When one is rejected, things go off balance. A man who represses his anima may become cold, disconnected, emotionally rigid. A woman who rejects her animus may struggle to set boundaries, speak up, or take initiative. But when you integrate these forces, you stop living in extremes. You step into inner wholeness. Archetypes aren't myths. They're living patterns inside you. And recognizing them is a powerful step toward individuation. Because the hero must meet the shadow. The inner masculine must meet the feminine. Only then can you begin to live from a center that's truly your own. But even beneath archetypes lies the most persistent illusion of all, that you are just one thing. And that's what we'll uncover next. Why who you think you are may only be the beginning. Part 6. The self is not fixed. You are always evolving. Most people live as if they are one thing. A fixed identity. A name, a job, a personality, a history. But Carl Jung believed something radically different. He taught that the true self is not your ego, not the surface version you present to the world, not the sum of your memories or labels. The self, Jung said, is a totality, including both conscious and unconscious, past and potential. It is not fixed, it is evolving. Imagine yourself not as a solid structure, but as a river, always moving, changing, deepening. Your past shapes you, yes, but it does not define your limits. The self you know is just one chapter. The soul beneath it is still writing. The problem is, we confuse the ego with the self. We cling to roles, stories, identities we outgrew years ago. I'm shy. I'm always the caretaker. I'm just not good enough. But these are just mental clothes, and sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is to take them off. Letting go of a false identity doesn't mean you lose yourself. It means you finally make space for your real self to emerge. When you stop saying, "This is who I am," with certainty, you open the door to who you might become. And that's what individuation is really about. Not changing into something new, but allowing your deeper nature to unfold. The self is not static. It is a process, a living, breathing evolution. And the more you release attachment to the old version of you, the more clearly you begin to hear the voice that's been whispering all along. So if we're not our roles, not our past, not even our pain, then who are we really? That's the question we'll carry into the final stage. Because when the masks are dropped, the shadow integrated, and the old self released, what's left is not emptiness. It's truth. It's wholeness. It's you. Part 7. Integrating the pieces. Coming home to yourself. After all the searching, the unraveling, the confronting, what remains? Carl Jung believed that the true path to wholeness is not about escaping pain or fixing yourself into perfection, but about integration. It means taking the parts of you you've rejected, the shadow, the persona, the forgotten dreams, and bringing them back into alignment. Not to judge them, not to erase them, but to understand them. To give each part its rightful place, because every moment of introspection, every time you pause and ask, "Why am I reacting this way?" Every time you look at a dream and wonder, "What is my unconscious trying to show me?" is a step out of fragmentation and a step toward wholeness. Jung saw practices like dream work, journaling, creative expression, and deep inner reflection as essential tools for individuation. These aren't just rituals. They are ways of listening, ways of tuning yourself. Imagine your soul as a musical instrument. Each emotion, your rage, joy, fear, longing, is a string on your soul's instrument. Some strings may be too tight. Others may be silent from years of neglect. But through conscious integration, you begin to tune yourself back into harmony. And the sound that emerges isn't noise. It's you, resonant, real, alive. This work is not fast. It's not linear. It's not always pleasant. But it is sacred. And it is yours. Because the truth is, you were never broken. You were divided. Split between who you are and who you were told to be. Between what you feel and what you were allowed to express. Between your truth and your survival. And now, after all this time, you are coming home. To the version of you that doesn't need to pretend. To the voice that doesn't whisper. It speaks. To the self that was never missing. Only waiting. In the final moments of this journey, we'll explore what it truly means to live from that place. Not in reaction, not in fear, but in wholeness. Because the journey of finding yourself doesn't end when you uncover the truth. It begins when you finally live it. You were never truly lost, only asleep. The journey of self-discovery doesn't lead you to someone new. It brings you back to someone ancient. The self that's always been there, patiently waiting. You were never broken. You were never unworthy. You were never too much or not enough. You were simply disconnected, not from the world, but from yourself. Carl Jung taught that the self is not something we create. It's something we remember. So the real question is this: who are you when you're no longer living in fear? Who are you without the mask, without the performance, without the past dictating your future? Because the self doesn't need permission to exist. It only needs your willingness to listen. If this message stirred something inside you, if it helped you see even a small piece of yourself more clearly, drop a comment below. I choose to remember who I am, and subscribe, because this journey isn't over.